Well, guys, after a strong first half of the season, The Flash Season 4 quickly kicks things into high gear and shows how dangerous DeVoe really is.
Don't change the channel, don't touch that dial. We got it all on UHM. Take off your sneakers.
Hey guys, it's more for the mid-season finale of The Flash, Season 4, Episode 9, Don't Run, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. You guys know, for me at least, this has been, honestly, a really strong season so far. I think they've really gotten things back on track. And as far as this finale, I will admit that this is very similar to Supergirl's finale, where I thought that it wasn't really that great of an episode until the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 minutes. However, unlike Supergirl's finale, I did not particularly like this episode. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it was a bad episode per se. It's more so just the way this episode was structured. It didn't feel filler necessarily, but everything that we got here, it just didn't feel like a mid-season finale, I'd say, till the very end of the episode. The stakes just weren't as high as they could be. The episode meandered a lot, and for me, I just was not as into this episode as some of the other ones this season. But let's just get into it. I definitely do want to talk about it. So we start off at Star Labs. We see Cisco and Harry. They're decorating the Christmas tree. They're arguing about the proper amount of tinsel. Harry's telling Cisco to use more tinsel, and if we could just have a whole episode just of these two bickering, I'd honestly be fine with it, because their bickering is one of the best parts of this show. I just love their banter, and they work so well together. But Ralph joins them, and then Keiynan, and they invite Ralph to join for the West Christmas party, and he isn't all interested, says he wants to spend time with only Killer Frost. He's not interested in Keiynan, which I don't know why this is a thing all of a sudden. Why is everyone just loving Killer Frost? I mean, I thought Killer Frost was this dangerous side of Keiynan. Why all of a sudden is everyone just, like, welcoming it? I don't know. It felt very strange. Like, I get it, obviously, you know, Mick would love that side of her because, I mean, he's a cynical fuck. He loves that kind of stuff. But someone like Ralph and Cisco, I don't get why all of a sudden they have this deep affinity for Frost. And that's like my big thing with this episode. I did not understand their sort of obsession with Frost here. But at their apartment, Barry and Iris are opening their wedding presents. And unlike the Supergirl mid-season finale, this one actually does acknowledge the crossover quite a lot. We see there's one more present without a card, which is one knife, and Barry then cleans up at normal speed. Iris points out that he has hardly used his super speed at all recently, and he explains he doesn't feel like he needs to run when he's with her. Their scenes were a bit cheesy, I definitely will say that, but at home we see DeVoe. He's trying to button his sweater, and DeVoe again, Neil Sandilands, continues to dominate the season. He was fantastic in this episode. We see Marliese comes in, helps him. He says that today is Christmas Day. He asks if she has any doubts, and Marliese assures him it will take some getting used to, and as she starts to go, DeVoe tells her not to be afraid because it's the great work and he will stand beside her in no time. So that night at Jitters, Keiylan's drinking coffee, and Harry comes in. The shop is then selling a Killer Frost drink, and Harry figures that Keiynan is wallowing in self-pity because of the fact that for some reason, everyone is just so high on Frost, and they don't really seem to be that appreciative of Keiynan. So she complains she can't escape her alter ego. Turns out people would rather hang out with her, and Harry tells her she's special and her friends would rather be with her than Frost. And, again, this whole plot I just didn't really care about because it hasn't really been that much of a thing this season. The whole thing this season has been her trying to keep Killer Frost under control. It hasn't really been that everyone's had this appreciation for it. It's kind of come out of nowhere, but then we see Amunet. She breaks through the doors, and she is easily my biggest problem with this episode. Look, I like Katie Sackhoff, I really do, but this character's gotta go. I'm saying it right now. This character has to go. I get it, the show's going for a more goofy tone, but there's only so far you can go with that, and Amunet is about as low, the bottom of the barrel, I think, as you can get. I was not all a fan of this character. So much of the episode focuses on her, and I really hope the show gets rid of her very quickly because she really isn't doing the show any favors right now. So Barry and Iverson return from shopping. Thinker then blasts Barry into an alleyway, and Amunet then calls for Keiynan, easily knocks out Harry when he draws a gun, and Thinker then offers Iris his congratulations on her wedding and blasts her, and Flash then whisks her away before the bolt can hit, and Keiynan starts to transform into Frost. Amunet slaps a power-dampening bracelet on her. She says that she's come for Caitlin, not for Frost, so Flash then goes after Thinker, who snags him with a set of tentacles from his chair, shocks him unconscious, and flies off. And this is good stuff between Thinker and Flash. It just feels just like we just kind of got this because it was a mid-season finale. I didn't really feel any urgency here, but back at Star Labs, Iris tells the others what happened, and they figured that the two abductions are related, and Iris takes the task of satellites to find their friends. I know a lot of people are upset that Iris is getting so much to do this season, but I understand it. I mean, you guys have to remember, when Barry was gone, Iris was the one, taking control. She was the one who was kind of like the head honcho, so to speak. She took over everything. She was the one calling the shots. So needless to say, her and Barry are kind of working equally at this point, so I'm not upset with them giving Iris more due. If anything, I welcome it. As long as she's not annoying, like she wasn't annoying in this episode, I welcome it because I want to be a character. I don't want Iris to just be on the sidelines. That's what Wally does in this show. Wally apparently doesn't matter in this show anymore because he's off God knows where almost all the time. He's in, I believe, Cambodia in this episode. They're doing a very good thing of not keeping Wally on because that character, he's just useless. He really is. But either way, basically, she has Cisco vibe Barry, and he's shocked back. He explains he's never experienced what happened before. So for whatever reason, no matter what happens, he cannot vibe on DeVoe, which this is very strange. I mean, obviously, that's been Cisco's main power. Why is he no longer able to do that? So Barry wakes up in Thinker's lair, discovers that he's imprisoned in a force field, and Amulet takes Caitlin to an abandoned hospital medical lab, explains she needs Caitlin to operate on a man, and she explains he's tranquilized, and Dominic is a meta that she found, and she planned to sell him, but he didn't want to cooperate, so she hit him in the head with one of her metal shards, and now Amulet needs Caitlin to save him, so Caitlin says she can't do the work with the antiquated equipment that Amunet provided, and Amunet prepares to remove the bullet with her powers, and her captive has no choice but to essentially agree. So as Amunet goes, she warns that if Dominic dies, then Caitlin will die as well. So Barry's unable to break through the force field using his super speed. Thinker emerges from the shadows. Dominic then wakes up, and Caitlin introduces herself, and a large part of this episode focuses on these two, which the ending of the episode, it makes sense why they focus so much on Dominic, but before this, I'm like, why are we getting so much focus on this character that we just don't care about? Because he isn't really all that interesting. He wakes up, Caitlin introduces herself, he begs her to help him escape, Caitlin tells him that he's a metahuman and Amunet wants to sell him as a commodity, and the second I saw Dominic, I'm like, oh great, another throwaway love interest for Caitlin, because that's all they've been doing with this character. I mean, sure, she's been Frost, but other than that, she's been in and out of relationships for like 2 seasons now, whether it was season 2 with Jay or season 3 with Julian. I thought Dominic was going to be like the next love interest for her. I thought that's kind of what they were setting up here, and that's not something I want. I want Keiynan to have a much better story than that. I think Danielle Panabaker is really good as this character, and Killer Frost is awesome, and the more they can do with her, the better. But Caitlin says she can't do the work with the antiquated equipment, and basically Dominic recites what she's thinking, and Caitlin realizes that he can actually read minds, and she says she'll do everything he can to fix him, but she can't get him away from Amunet on her own. So Dominic says that he's scared as well, and like I said, way too much episode is devoted to these two bonding, and at this point, I just did not really care. So Barry then figures that Thinker wants him alive, and Thinker says he's going to attack him. His captive agrees, but he lays out what has happened so far and asks why, and Thinker says that his current agenda isn't actually part of his course, so he's going to show Barry that there are no happy endings. A doorbell then rings on a monitor, and it shows Joe arriving outside the DeVoe house, and Thinker says that Barry should learn humility for what lies ahead, and then he leaves, and out of his chair, we see DeVoe invites Joe in. Joe asks where his son is, and DeVoe claims he doesn't know where Barry is. Obviously he does, but he says that he knows Harry's outside with a gun. Harry comes in. DeVoe says that Joe has failed to acknowledge that Barry may have run away, and when Joe goes after him, DeVoe reminds him that he has a restraining order against Barry, so legally he can't really do much of anything, and He invites Joe to search his home for Barry, and Barry then tries to vibrate through the force field without success. Mechanic comes in and says he's only hurting himself, warns that nothing can destroy the barrier. Barry tells her that she doesn't have to help him. Mechanic says she's her husband's partner and always will be, and Barry warns that she's risking her marriage, and Marliese angrily says she'd sacrifice anything for her husband, and DeVoe already knows that. So I will admit, I do like this narrative of DeVoe and Marliese, how devoted she is, how she's not someone who is just, because I thought Marliese was going to be like the one to turn against DeVoe and that she was going to end up on Barry's side, and so far, it seems like her allegiance is to DeVoe, and I really do like that. I like that it's not that she's going to deviate away from it, she's going to go over the Team Flash, because that'd be way too predictable, and I'm hoping the show doesn't do that, because they tend to do that a lot with, sort of like the companion of the main villain, and I'm hoping they don't do that here. So, at Star Labs, Cisco tells the others that the satellite scanners are overheating, trying to find Barry and Caitlin. Harry comes in and says that there was nothing at DeVoe's house, and Ralph talks about his cases. Cisco tells him to shut up and reminds him that he drove Caitlin away earlier, so Iris tells him to cool it, and Cisco goes to his lab, and Harry tells Iris that she's the team leader and has to make the tough call, and they can only look for one. So Iris says she can't choose between her husband or her friend. It's got to be one or the other. She can't choose between the two. She wants to save both of them, and Harry warns if she doesn't, then she risks losing them both. So Iris is kind of stuck here where she has to choose between the two. The problem is, neither of them are gonna die. Barry's not gonna die. Caitlin's not gonna die. So there isn't really a lot of, like I said, there's not really a lot of tension here. There's not really a lot of stakes. These characters are gonna be fine. So this whole situation, it just feels very arbitrary, and they're gonna get out of it. So it's like, why are you even dwelling on it? But Caitlin's then unable to release the dampener. Dominic picks her up her thoughts of Frost. He asks who she is, and Caitlin explains she's her alter ego and a lot more useful than she is, and Caitlin says it's too risky to perform the surgery and doesn't have any powers to save them, but he does. So she closed the privacy curtain and then leads Dominic out. He uses his telepathy to avoid Aminet's guards, but Aminet blocks their way with a metal barrier. She talks to Caitlin privately and points out that she hasn't hurt her, and Aminet asks why she ran away. Caitlin points out that Frost would have been able to escape. The villainess says that she was a stewardess before she became a crime lord, and when she gained her powers, she took revenge on the pilots who sexually harassed her. And Aminet says she came to Caitlin because she's always been bright and resourceful, and she's certain that Caitlin can do the operation. With that, she tells Caitlin to do it. And again, I just don't care about this character. I find her boring, I find her over the top, and I just don't really like her. But Cisco finds Ralph yelling at the satellite to find Barry and Caitlin. He apologized for being a dick, and Ralph says that he is the dick, and Ralph admits that he hasn't had friends for a while, and he's out of practice, and now Christmas is ruined and everyone's captured, and it's his fault. And Cisco points out that he's there and helping. So Iris comes in and tells him that since Barry can take care of himself, they're turning off the Speed Force and going after Caitlin. So Caitlin then Jerry rigs an MRI machine. She tells Aminet to give her some space. Aminet then leaves some metal shards there to control as she steps away. Dominic tells Caitlin that she trusts her. Caitlin goes work to removing the shard, and Dominic then goes into shock. Caitlin tries to revive him. Aminet and the guard then pass out. Dominic gets up. She turns off the anesthetic that she's been pumping into the room, and the satellite then picks up Caitlin's latest cryogenic signature, and Cisco prepares to breach over with Elongated Man. So Caitlin and Dominic then run out. Aminet after them and fires her shards. Elongated Man absorbs them and blasts Aminet. He then creates a breach. The four of them go through before Aminet can stop them, and I did like Ralph's line. As much as I didn't like the character, I did like Ralph's line to Aminet when he said how he really liked her and he wanted Netflix and chill later. Just stuff like that I honestly did really enjoy. I thought that was honestly really funny. Maybe it was just Hardly Sawyer's delivery, but like I said, I'm really enjoying the character. Don't like Aminet, but Ralph in general I am really enjoying is what I'm trying to say. So Thinker then returns to his sanctuary. He discovers that Barry is gone, and when he drops the force field, Flash then runs out of the area. He stops and says that he vibrated so fast as to be invisible, and Thinker's eyes are still human, so Thinker says it's far from over. He grabs Flash when Flash grabs him. He teleports his chair into the sky, drops Flash. Flash then hangs on as Thinker then soars into the city. He's smashing him into buildings. Thinker tries to grab him with his chair's tentacles, and this was a good scene. I thought we did get a pretty good scene here. Flash then vibrates to let him pass through him. He loses his grip and falls into the harbor, and Cisco's flotation device in his suit then activates as Flash floats, and Thinker's chair then slams to the water and it explodes. So Flash then speeds into AR Labs, Iris hugs him relieved, and later the team confirms the DeVoe house is empty, so Barry figures that Thinker is interested in his powers, and Keiynan warns that Amunet won't back down. So Joe asks if they still want to do Christmas at his house since he didn't have time to decorate, and everyone agrees. So Keiynan says that she'll bring Dominic, and once they're alone, Iris wonders if she can keep making decisions that might get Barry killed, and he assures her that she made the right call, and now they have themselves a merry little Christmas. So they arrive, they discover that Ralph is dressed as Santa, he's decorated the house, and he explains he wanted to do something nice for his friends, and he then apologized for putting his foot in his mouth earlier, and he assures Keiynan that no one is better than her. Keiynan agrees, pointing out that she saved the day. There is a present from Cisco, which is a breakup cube, and Harry warns it's not a breakup cube. Cisco should open it alone. He turns it on and finds a hologram of Gypsy, and she's wearing like a very suggestive Santa suit, basically just, you know, an open invitation for sex. So Joey says that Wally couldn't make it, and Dominic arrives. Keiynan introduces him to everyone. Cisco gives him the nickname Brainstorm, and Barry's security alert at the loft goes off. He speeds there to investigate. He thinks there's just going to be presents or whatever, and then we get to the really good stuff, because like I said, I didn't really like this episode that much until the very end. This was an awesome ending. He gets there, Dominic calls him all of a sudden. I'm like, why the hell is Dominic calling him? I thought that maybe he was tied to DeVoe, but says that he's actually Thinker. Yeah, he actually is DeVoe. So we find out that earlier as Dominic is shopping, Amunet approaches him. She says she's a very important buyer, knocks him out, takes him to the docks, and Amunet collects her payment from a mechanic. Thinker arrives, grabs Dominic's head with his tentacles, and he says that Dominic's new abilities will let him do what he needs to do. Because remember, his body is kind of breaking down. It doesn't really work anymore, and he transmits his mind into Dominic's brain, so Thinker explains that he needs to be reborn and says that he has no interest in Barry's family. However, he says he left something there for Barry, and it turns out when Barry gets there, he sees the knife, there's a trail of blood, and Clifford's body is dead on the floor. So basically, DeVoe has done this to frame Barry. He's stabbed in the chest, Singh and his men knock on the door. They break in, Barry looks at the photos of he and Iris, tells himself not to run. Don't get out of there, you know, just take it and, you know, just do what you just don't run, you know, whatever you do. So when Singh and the others come in, Barry surrenders. Singh arrests himself for DeVoe's murder, and we then see Dominic tells the others he has to go. He walks to where Marlise is waiting. She puts his wedding ring on his hand. They kiss, and Thinker says it's time to bring about the Enlightenment. With that, they drive off, and that is the way this episode ends. So, like I said, guys, while this wasn't at all a bad finale, aside from that ending, it didn't really feel much like one. It really didn't. It felt more or less just kind of like, oh, you know, Thinker's been prominent this season, Amunet's been prominent this season, let's just get the two in there, let's kidnap the two, you know, most important characters of the season, and there we go. It just didn't really feel like it had a central focus for sure, but it just felt very been there, done that. You knew Barry was gonna be okay, you knew Keiynan was gonna be okay, so after a certain point, it was just like, you know, what's really the point of all this? Why are we really getting this now? It did feel a little bit very repetitive and been there, done that feel, especially when it comes to Amunet. Like I said, not a fan of this character. I just think she's way too over the top and cheesy. I don't care about her backstory. I don't care about the fact that she, you know, needs Caitlin, and, you know, after what happened to her, the whole thing with how she ran away, and that Frost would have been able to escape, and that's, you know, she turned to Caitlin because she's always been bright and resourceful. I don't care. It doesn't make any sense. I don't care about the character, and I'm hoping we don't see a ton of her, because, again, I like Katie Sackhoff, but this character is just really not working at all. So Amunet, I really wasn't a fan of. And then the stuff with Barry and the Thinker, you knew Barry was going to get out of it. You knew the Thinker wasn't just going to kidnap Barry. You knew he was going to be fine, so again, I didn't really see the point in all of that. So, yeah, that really didn't do much of anything for me. Also, the whole thing with Cisco and Ralph all of a sudden being into Frost and not really wanting the Caitlyn side of things didn't make much of sense. I mean, sure, I'm sure there's been, you know, occasions where they thought about it, but why all of a sudden are they preferring Caitlyn over Frost? I mean, wasn't the whole narrative that they were trying to, you know, show Caitlyn how important she was, and that she, they were trying to show her that she's good all on her own. She doesn't need Frost. It didn't work for the narrative overall. I didn't really get what they were trying to do there. So none of that, really worked, I think, in the way they wanted it to. Aside from that, though, the ending of this episode was phenomenal. I love where this ending is going because all of us have been questioning, why is DeVoe such a threat? This guy is in a wheelchair. He's not a metahuman. He is a metahuman, but, he's not, a speedster. Why is he so powerful against Barry? And I think we've seen, not only is he so ostensibly intelligent, which, we've seen that pretty much, fragmented throughout the season, we definitely seen that here, but we now see that he's so resourceful and intelligent that he can actually use that against Barry and use that against other people. He found a way to switch his body with Dominic, and Dominic, he's not in DeVoe now, obviously, but he's now in Dominic, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where this actually does go. I think this is going to be so interesting, and it makes sense for DeVoe. Normally I'd be like, oh, the whole body switcher thing, they just didn't have enough time for Neil Sandilands, but I don't think that's what it is here. I think the reason that he switched with Dominic is because he wanted that more, powerful body. Remember, his body's breaking down. He's close to dying. Dominic is a lot more young. Dominic is a lot more fit and all that kind of stuff. So he has all of the things that DeVoe really needs to survive and all the things he needs to become a lot more powerful. And I think he's really going to use that to his advantage. And Barry, he's going to be okay, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he's really going to do. He's clearly playing mind games with Barry, and he's not using his friends against him, which I think is actually really interesting. He's not trying to go after Iris. He's not going after Caitlin. He's going specifically after Barry, and I'm really looking forward to seeing really where this does go. We haven't really seen something like this happen to Barry before, where he's now arrested, and he's behind bars, so all of that is really interesting. It's different. We haven't gotten something like that before, and I'm looking forward to seeing really where that does go. Other than that, I don't really have too much to say about this episode. Like I said, I thought it was just very repetitive overall. In terms of this season, though, I have quite enjoyed this season. I think the lighter, tone that they've been going for has actually worked very well for them. They've gotten back to what the show is, which is just supposed to be a fun show. Sure, it has those darker moments, but it's more of a fun season. I think it works coming off the heels of, the third one, which was just so dark and devoid of any sort of humor whatsoever. So I'm glad to see they're going in a much more comedic direction here. The inclusion of Ralph I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed the comedy between Harry and everyone. I'm glad to see that Harry is full-time. It doesn't seem like they're switching Harry at any time soon, which is good. I really do love Harry on here. I like what they've been doing with Caitlin. I like that Iris has had more to do this season. Really my only complaints with this season overall, like I said, Aminette, have not been a fan of her character at all. I don't understand why she really needs to be here. I just don't really see the need for her here. And the way they have, set some things up. Some of the metahumans haven't really done much of anything for me. I definitely will say that overall. Other than that, though, I have really enjoyed this first half of the season for sure. I think it's been very solid overall. I do think, they didn't need to bring Barry back in the first episode. They definitely could have waited a little bit. And yes, some things were a bit too goofy, but in the end, I do think it worked for the show overall. This season has felt a lot more focused than last season does, and that's something I definitely will absolutely give them here. We already know who the big bad is, so there's no reveal, there's no mystery or anything. Now it's going in a completely different direction. That's something I really do love. I love that we are working with a narrative that virtually is unpredictable and that we don't really know where it's going to go. That's not something you could say about The Flash. First 3 seasons, we knew exactly how it was going to go, but season 4, because this guy's not a speedster and he's a metahuman, he's a lot more intelligent than the other ones were. There's so many places where this can go. So I'm very interested in seeing where the rest of the season does go. So now I'm going to grade both the mid-season finale and the season overall. So for the mid-season finale, The Flash, season 4, episode 9, Don't Run, I would give the episode overall a C+. It was very close to a C, but that ending really did make up for it. And the season as a whole, so far at least, I would give a B+. And with that, guys, that's it. The Flash is over for now. Like I said, I definitely have enjoyed this season for the most part. Let me know what you guys saw this finale overall. Left your thoughts. Did you like this season so far? Where do you think we're really going to go for the rest of the season? Like I said, there are a lot of possibilities, and I'm very interested in seeing where they do go with them. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.